Yo, what is up everybody, and welcome back to another Madden 17 online rank match game. Today we are officially kicking off the 32 team preview series for the 2017-2018 NFL season. We're going to be playing with all 32 teams this summer, previewing their teams, looking at their depth chart, see what it's looking like, looking at their draft class, see who needs to step up. We'll, go over what they did good and bad last year. All sorts of analysis on the team, and we are starting off with the Minnesota Vikings. No real reason to start off with the Vikings. I wanted to start off with the NFC this year, since last year for like the 8 teams we did, they were all AFC teams. So I figured we'll start with the NFC conference, and I just got into a game with the Vikings, so we're going to be starting off with the NFC North. We're going to do the Vikings and the Packers, Lions, and Bears, and then we'll pick a new division from there from the NFC. But we got the Vikings today, and the Vikings, they were a really good team for the first 5 games of last year. They started off 5-0. It looked like their decision to trade for Sam Bradford was looking really high, and then the offense pretty much fell apart from there on out. The defense, they had their up and downs, but they weren't really getting blown out or anything like that. They weren't getting completely torched, but the offense lost his touch. I mean, it wasn't really that good at the beginning, but, as the season went on, they kind of got exposed for what was pretty much the worst rushing attack in the NFL. When you look at the stats and all that, I think they actually had the lowest amount of rushing yards as a team last year. Adrian Peterson was hurt for a while, so they were relying on Jerick McKinnon and Matt Asiata and people like that to produce most of the rushing yards. And with that running back duo or trio, and then you got one of the worst offensive lines in the league on top of that, you're going to have, potentially the worst rushing attack, and that's what happened to them. So how did they try to improve that this year? They signed Latavius Murray in free agency, which is not a bad signing. He's okay. Not really a great signing, but you have him, and then they drafted Dalvin Cook. They lost their first-round pick in the draft to trade for Sam Bradford, and they got Dalvin Cook in the second round. That was their first guy they drafted this year, so that's, that could be good. It depends on how Cook is. I really don't know too much about Dalvin Cook, and I just know he played for FSU, and he was pretty good down there, but that's a move that doesn't have to work for them too great, since they got Latavius Murray in free agency. As long as one of those two is pretty nice, that's cool. But what the Vikings really need, not necessarily the running back situation, they need the offensive line situation to sort itself out, because last year they were injured, and they just weren't good in general. The only good offensive lineman they had last year was Joe Berger. Otherwise, their tackles kept getting injured, and this year, they didn't really do too much to improve that tackle situation. I think they got Riley Reeve. I think he used to play for the Lions, but besides that, they really didn't do anything to improve their tackle situation. They got a new guard, Alex Boone. They drafted a center in the 3rd round, so you'll see how he does, but the Vikings running back situation, or their running game in general, is still pretty suspect coming up next season, so I don't know. That kind of caps their ceiling. And then their passing attack, the Vikings in general, there's one theme as you go throughout the roster, and that is the fact that they do not have a lot of depth at positions. They're really good at certain positions, like the wide receiver spot. Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, that's a great one too. Stephon Diggs, I absolutely love his game. He's, runs good routes, gets some nice yards after the catch and stuff like that. And then Adam Thielen's a great slot receiver as well. Both those guys are, pretty good in the slot. You can move Thielen outside a little bit. He was really impressive last year. Kind of came out the woodworks last year. But besides those two, and Kyle Rudolph at the tight end spot. Can't forget about Rudolph, because, he's one of those top tight end guys right there. After that, though, they have no depth at the tight end spot. At the wide receiver spot, absolutely no depth. You're relying on Treadwell to have a good year. Treadwell, their first-round pick last year. You really need him to have a good year in order for that passing attack to really be good. And then you got Sam Bradford at the quarterback spot. Probably not going to have Teddy Bridgewater this year. You got Bradford. I thought Bradford was pretty good last year, personally. Even though he was captain checkdown, that, if you look at the pieces around him, you kind of understand why. Played behind one of the worst offensive lines, got sacked a lot because of it. And then on top of that, he was playing with the worst rushing attack. So, you kind of get capped in those kind of situations. And then, Diggs was out for a little bit of the season with injuries. So, with all that combined, Bradford did pretty good for what he had. He had 30 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. He had the 6th best quarterback rating in the NFL, and that's not bad. I mean, you can't really trash on a guy that does that for your team, all right? And that's what Sam Bradford did. So, you bring Bradford back, that's pretty good in my opinion, to at least have him back, but they have no depth, so Treadwell really needs to step it up. He did not look good his rookie season. He did not look good in the preseason when I watched him play. Definitely wasn't good in his rookie season at all. Didn't really get much playing time. but that's because he didn't really impress anyone. You can see why he didn't impress anyone. He's pretty slow and, struggles to get open, and that's the problem in the NFL as a wide receiver. So that's the offensive side of football. The defensive side of football is pretty exciting for Minnesota because you got one of the best secondaries in the league last year. Pretty much all these guys are returning from last year besides Captain Wonderland. You got Terrence Newman, who played out of his mind last year. You don't know how much longer you can expect Terrence Newman to play well because he's getting up there in age. He's been up there in age, but he'll be back next year. You could probably provide something. Xavier Rhodes was playing like a top 10 cornerback all last year. He was, he wasn't like exceptionally well or anything like that. He wasn't like Richard Sherman well, but he was still, he was a little bit inconsistent. But otherwise, Xavier Rhodes was phenomenal last year. You got him. But once again, you lack depth otherwise. They drafted Mackenzie Alexander last year, and he didn't really do too well with the limited snaps he had. You had, what's his face? Trey Waynes. Trey Waynes is an up-and-down player, so, that could be good enough to pass, but, one guy gets injured on the Minnesota Vikings, and that really caps their season. But, the Vikings, like I said, they have great defense. They have Eric Kendricks, young linebacker, looked really good, set to improve some more this year. If Eric Kendricks takes that next step, that's big for that defense. To have that leader in the middle, that's big for them because their secondary is really good. You got Harrison Smith, you got Sendejo, who, he did decent last year. I don't know if that's because he had the players around him to where there wasn't much pressure on him, but, he wasn't, like, completely trash last year. So, he's coming back this year. That's pretty good for the defense to have that consistency. And then, besides Eric Kendricks, their linebacking unit kind of weak, but you do have Anthony Barr, and that's always good to have Anthony Barr. Anthony Barr was another guy that was pretty inconsistent last year, but, if he steps it up this year like he should, that's a big improvement for them. And then their defensive line's, pretty damn good. They got a lot of sacks last year. You got Linval Joseph. You got Daniel Hunter, who was, really good for a young guy last year. Everson Griffin, he's still getting things done. You got Robinson, who I believe is the longest tenured Viking at this point. So, he's not at Adrian Peterson's gone. You guys see Adrian Peterson getting this long touchdown run to give us the lead, which is pretty hype, but he won't be back next year. You got Latavius Murray and Dalvin Cook to see how they do. One thing about the Vikings last year is that their draft class, if you look at it on paper, gave them absolutely nothing last year. In fact, it gave them like negatives or anything like that. Because like I said, Mackenzie Alexander didn't do anything. Treadwell didn't do anything. Who else did they draft last year? I can't even remember anyone they drafted. They drafted the German wide receiver, if you guys remember that. Didn't do anything. They drafted a guard, Beavers, in the third round. Well, like a left guard or something like that. He didn't bring jack all. They drafted a center this year in the third round. And you got to hope that center brings something, because their center spot, I don't even know who's starting at center for them. It says Easton is starting for them at center in this little depth chart I'm looking at. That's not good, because I really don't know who he is, and he's probably not going to provide anything. So, the thing about the Vikings, like I said, really good defense, pass defense. The run defense was a little bit iffy. The pass defense was stellar. They got a lot of sacks. The one thing the Vikings really did good last year that helped their record was their turnover ratio was one of the best in the league. Like I said, Bradford only 5 interceptions. They got a lot of sacks, got to the quarterback, forced a lot of fumbles. They got their good share of interceptions with that secondary. If they bring that back this year, all they got to do is have a decent running attack. And if Latavius Murray and Dalvin Cook can provide that, I think the Vikings could potentially be playoff bound. I had the Vikings at having like a 9-7 or 10-6 record, or maybe an 8-8 record. I have them in that area this year. I don't think the Lions are going to be as good as they were last year. So for the Vikings, that's a chance to compete for maybe the NFC North with the Packers. If not, try to compete for a wild card spot. I think they're that good of a team that they can do that. It's just like, it really just depends on that rushing attack really needs to step up. And, you're going to need Anthony Barr to play really well. You're going to need Kendricks to play really well. Daniel Hunter, all these young guys, they step up. I mentioned Terrence Newman, but he's really the only old guy in that secondary. You got Rhodes, who's really good, Harrison Smith. These young guys, they can really produce on the defensive end and give you that elite defensive team. Mike Zimmer as the coach, a defensive-minded coach, can really provide a lot of good things for that team. You just need the offensive line to not be complete trash. You need maybe Treadwell to step up. If not, you need Diggs and Thielen and Kyle Rudolph to put in a lot of work. You need Bradford to do a little bit better than he did last year. He obviously could step up and make more, medium throws and stuff like that instead of just taking checkdowns all the time. But I thought Bradford was pretty decent last year. You bring him back, then I think the Vikings will be pretty good next year. 9-7, 10-6, maybe 8-8. They're going to be a team that you don't really want to play. especially as an offensive team, like as a quarterback, you don't really want to play the Vikings. You want to go against that defense. You don't want to go against that pass rush because they're bringing guys back, Everson Griffin and Daniel Hunter, who should be coming, and Anthony Barr as well, should be eating your quarterback alive. So that'll do it for this video. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section, especially any Vikings fans out there that want to add any input to this, because, you know, I'm probably not right about everything I'm saying. There's a guarantee I'm not right about everything I'm saying. So you guys got anything you guys want to let me know about? Let me know about it. And leave a like and if you guys enjoyed it. Subscribe for more. I'll catch you guys next time when we continue the series. We're going to do one of the NFC North teams next, so look out for that.